Okay, so what if I told you that the solution to one of our biggest global challenges wasn't in some high-tech lab, but was actually, wriggling around in a compost bin? Today, we're looking at a very unlikely hero in the quest to feed our planet. And I gotta say, it might just change how you see your dinner plate.
So to really get why this little hero is so important, we first have to wrap our heads around the massive challenge we're facing. And this isn't some far-off problem for our grandkids. It's about the very real and, frankly, increasingly unsustainable cost of what we all eat.
I mean, this is the big one, right? This is the question that's driving so much innovation and, let's be honest, a lot of anxiety in the world of agriculture. The global population is on track to hit 10 billion people in just a few decades. That is a lot of mouths to feed. And our current systems? They're already stretched pretty thin.
And here's the scale of that challenge, just to put a number on it. We're talking about boosting global food production by up to 56%. That is a massive jump. This isn't about making a few small tweaks. It means we have to get a whole lot smarter and more sustainable, especially when we're talking about resource-heavy foods like chicken. You see, the very foundation of our poultry industry is kind of shaky. The main protein sources we've relied on for decades, soybean meal and fish meal, well, they come with huge environmental baggage, everything from clear-cutting forests to emptying our oceans. On top of that, they're expensive. Really expensive, sometimes making up 70% of a farmer's total costs and tying them to these crazy, volatile global markets. But what if there was another way? This is where our tiny, powerful, and yeah, I'll admit it, a little squirmy hero enters the story. It's an insect that has the potential to totally revolutionize the entire system.
So, let me introduce you to the black soldier fly larva, or BSFL for short. Now, this is not your average housefly, not even close. This little creature is an absolute master of upcycling. It takes organic waste, we're talking food scraps, agricultural byproducts, stuff we'd normally just throw away, and it efficiently converts it into a super dense package of protein and fat.
And their secret? It all comes down to their incredibly fast life cycle. The real magic happens right here, in the larval stage. For a couple of weeks, these guys do nothing but eat and grow, turning what we think of as garbage into an incredibly valuable resource. The adult flies, get this, they don't even have mouths to eat. They just live for a few days to reproduce and start the whole cycle over again. It's an amazing system.
So, what makes them so valuable? Well, just look at this nutritional breakdown. Once they're dried, they are about 42% protein and 25% fat. I mean, that profile makes them a direct, nutrient-rich competitor to those traditional feed ingredients. They are an absolute powerhouse of nutrition, created entirely from waste.
So let's just recap its superpowers, because they're pretty cool. First, it's a waste management solution. Second, it's a climate change fighter, right? It diverts waste from landfills where it would just produce methane. And third, it's a premium source of the exact building blocks, those amino acids and fats, that poultry need to grow and be healthy.
Okay, so this all sounds fantastic in theory, right? But the real question, the one that really matters is, does it work in practice? Can you actually feed this stuff to chickens and get the same or maybe even better results? All right, let's dive into the science.
But hold on, before we jump into the data, it's really important to get this. This isn't some magic bullet. The research makes it pretty clear that you can't just swap out all the soybean meal for insect meal and call it a day. The science here is nuanced. It's all about finding that perfect balance, that sweet spot. And the research shows a really clear pattern. When you replace about 5 to 10% of the conventional feed with BSFL meal, the chicken's growth is pretty much identical to the control group. No difference. But if you start pushing that past 15%, you actually start seeing a drop in weight gain. So it seems the sweet spot is pretty clear. A little goes a long way. And the effects go way beyond just growth. This is fascinating. Feeding chickens BSFL actually changes the nutritional makeup of the meat itself.
The level of saturated fats, especially this really beneficial one called lauric acid, tends to go up. But at the same time, the polyunsaturated fats, the PUFAs, they tend to go down. So there's this really interesting trade-off that actually affects the final product that ends up on our table.
The diet even changes what the meat looks like. Some studies have found that higher levels of BSFL can make the breast meat a bit redder, while others have reported it gets more yellow. And believe it or not, this stuff really matters, because when you and I are at the grocery store, we judge the quality of meat by its color. So any alternative feed has to produce meat that we, the consumers, will actually want to buy.
But wait, the story doesn't end with just nutrition and meat quality. No, it turns out the black soldier fly larva has some hidden powers that go way beyond just being a simple source of protein.
Yeah, some of the most exciting discoveries are about what happens inside the chicken. The larvae aren't just food, they're almost like a bioactive ingredient that can fundamentally improve the bird's health. And it all starts right there in the gut.
So here's how it works. The larva's exoskeleton, it's made of something called chitin, which is a type of fiber. This acts as a prebiotic, basically food for all the good bacteria in the chicken's gut. A healthier community of microbes then strengthens the intestinal wall, it boosts the bird's immune system, and ultimately helps it absorb all the other nutrients from its feed way more efficiently. It's a total win-win.
And guess what? A healthier, more efficient bird is a more economical bird. Just check out this quote from a recent study. It's pretty powerful. By finding that optimal level, that sweet spot, researchers got a massive 23% reduction in feed cost per bird. For a farmer, that number is an absolute game changer. It makes this sustainable option economically irresistible.
Okay, so we have a solution that's sustainable, it's nutritious, it's health boosting, and it's cost effective. So what does the future hold for our tiny hero? I mean, where do we go from here?
Well, the road ahead is really all about refinement. Researchers are working on tailoring what the larvae eat to basically fine-tune their nutritional output. We also need more long-term studies, and the industry has to figure out how to scale up production to make it truly competitive with soy and fish meal. And of course, both farmers and consumers have to get on board with the whole idea of, feeding insects to our food.
The good news is regulators are already paying attention. Over in the EU, using BSL for poultry and pig feed is already a done deal. That's authorized. And here in the US, the FDA is actively moving toward officially recognizing it as a feed ingredient for poultry. So the wheels are definitely in motion for this to become a mainstream reality.
So I guess it all comes down to this one last question. To meet the massive food demands of our future while also protecting our planet and improving animal health, we might need to think outside the box. Or, in this case, inside the compost bin. The solution might not be what any of us expected, but it just might be a little bit wriggly.